Episode 1. Let me live my fantasy. Chapter 1. Let me live my fantasy. Somewhere in the hills of England, 4,183 miles from freedom, the A.S.S.C.O screamed down the hill and rounded a curve fishtailing. The driver's black fedora fell abruptly onto the floor, where it lay under the gaze of the car's passenger, a Chinese man in an Italian raincoat. He regarded it for a moment, then an evil sneer spread over his stoic features. At length, he lifted his foot carefully and jammed it into the center of the hat. It was symbolic. A last defiant blow struck the filthy Western world. The Asian man knew he was about to die. Perhaps he had 2 minutes to live. Glancing behind him, he saw the black car bearing down. The car twisted again, and the Asian man thought of Beijing. The A.S.S.C.O quickly turned, striking a large pothole and skidding across the road. English roads were absurd. The steady rain is ridiculous. The English are ridiculous, they deserve to be killed and forgotten. China will be the dominant power in the world, we are the most powerful country ever. The strikingly beautiful American woman, having regained control of the car, looked at her hat. "What did you do that for?" she said. It was new, and her personal favorite. "I've only worn it for a week," she stated. The Chinaman shrugged. Now that it was nearly over, he felt the desire to commune with his enemy. He put his hand inside his raincoat. The beauty tensed. Had she missed a gun when she frisked him? The Chinaman took out a white paper sack. "Care for a rose," he said. 3 days earlier, 1900 hours local, Atlanta, Georgia, USA. The room was bustling with activity as the workers walked to and fro. The door opened, and a shapely figure stepped in. "Hello, there," said a man walking towards the door. "How can I be of service?" The lady looks at the man with critical discernment and says, "I'm looking for Gary Fox. He is expecting me." The man gestured towards the brown door on his left. "Thank you, so kind of you," she said. As she walked through the room, every man looked up and watched her walk to the door. As soon as she knocked, they averted their eyes in a hurry. To say she's a vamp is an understatement. Janelle, codename Cox Teagues, Croucher, is a knockout. Perfect, everything. Just like Anna Constance. The two are rivals when it comes to work and their men. The door opened, and sitting at the desk was an older man. He has a pale visage, a short goatee, and a close haircut. Some gray showing, but a handsome man just the same. "Hello, Cox Teagues," he said. "Well, hello to you too, Pessel," she replied. "Let's have a seat and talk. Please close the door." Gary Fox looks up at Janelle and says, "Here's your eyes-only folder of your mission. You need to commit this to memory, Janelle." "Minna," she retorts. "Pardon?" "Minna, I like to be called Minna," she said with a smile. She noticed Gary looking queerly at her chest. "Something wrong," she exclaimed. "I've seen that car before. It reminds me of another officer, that's all." "Sorry," he said. "Ew. It's not important. Let's just get to work, shall we? This mission is very important to our Republic and our NATO friends. The CCP is gaining traction with the Third World. We need to disrupt their influence operations at all costs," said Gary. "The mission is to penetrate the CCP's Central and South America operations deep enough to get what we want, specifically Venezuela and Colombia. You are to pose as an embassy liaison officer for the FBI. We have recovered documents from the paper mill. This mission is an operational game to capture a CCP intelligence officer by any means necessary. Secondly, all intelligence he may have or his handlers have. Local coffee shop in Atlanta, Georgia, 2,000 hours. "Hi, Janelle. I mean Minna," said the barista. "I'll have my usual, please," she said. "Sure thing," he said. All eyes were on Minna as she walked towards the middle table to find a chair. Music started to play, and the song seemed too relevant. Just what I needed by the Cars. Hair draped over her right shoulder allowed the eyes easy viewing of her shapely buttock. Easy viewing of her shapely buttock. Easy viewing of her shapely buttock.
Easy viewing of her shapely buttock.
Moments later, she sat at the table and opened her laptop. She looked up just in time to see a familiar face walk in the door. It was Gary Fox from the office.
Impressive.
He stepped up to the counter and ordered. Then he turned around and noticed Minna sitting alone. She motioned for him to sit with her with a smile. Moments later, he sat at the table. "Hi, Minna. Don't you have an early flight?" he said. "You know I do, Gary," she said with a smile. "Can you help me pack? I also need clarification on some of the itineraries back at my place." Gary gave her a look. "Really? You need my help to pack?" "You know that I do. I can't do this myself. I really need to talk to you also. Please," she said. Inside the apartment of Janelle Croucher, the mood is somber, and Minna is sitting on her bed drinking a glass of wine. Gary steps in with a bottle. "You know, Minna, all is going as planned. Your contact will be on time, and I have personally arranged your studio apartment in Bogota. You know where the embassy is," he said. "Gary, I have a bad feeling about this mission. The Chinese MSS have heavily infiltrated the area in Colombia and especially Venezuela. They're expanding their influence." Minna looked at Gary with a small grin and winked. "Let's go to bed," she said with a smile. "I can't think of anything better to do than to get my mind off of trouble." She got up and walked over to the door, quickly locked it, pulled the shoulder straps off, and the dress dropped to the floor. Gary's eye widened. He knew she was a knockout, but seeing is believing, and his heart started to palpitate. He looked upon the majesty of the perfect 38-24-35 measurement. She said, "Gary, let me get to know you before we part ways. The girl needs to relax, you know." She jumped upon Gary's manhood. She jumped upon
Gary's manhood.
"Minna, be careful," he said between the sheets. "You're jarring the bed. It's moving." "Can't be helped," Minna said, not lessening the passionate maneuvers. "Somebody below us will be complaining about the racket," Gary said weakly. "Can't be bothered," Minna said. Her behind jogged up and down against the mattress, as if twerking. Her breasts moved to the rhythm of her thumping thighs. Gary moaned with pleasure. "Oof," Gary said, rolling away. Minna cupped her hands under her breasts and pointed her nipples at him. 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 Taking his cue, Gary kissed them, suckling, as if a newborn baby. Moments later, he climbed atop the writhing seductress for another round. Then, for a long while, there was silence, except for the squeaking of the bed and the scraping of its legs against the floor, as it migrated in the course of Minna's activities. After one last bounce, Minna grasped Gary by his arms and trembled and shook. Her eyes rolled back as she called out his name. A note from the author. Deep penetration. The team is designated for a penetration mission deep behind enemy lines. They're there to gain some piece of intelligence, but to do so, they may have to bring someone out or discover something so deadly they need to destroy it or get it back with them. This is the second story in the A.S.S.C.O series.